before we get into it, I want to properly introduce Shaun. He's a world-class copywriter, one of the best with words and writing that there is in the online world. He has been sought out and built businesses and done so much with so many high-level people over the years. It's really something to marvel at. He's had such an amazing since
2008, but 2010 is when I started meeting all the people. So it's been about a decade.
Shaun's an over 40 hormonal fat loss expert. I call him ripped. It's a fancy way of saying it, right? Over 50. Yeah. He's a ripped granddad, is what he is. Okay, he's the most ripped granddad that you will ever see or have ever seen. Okay, I promise you that, and you will see the pictures if you watch the YouTube video. You'll see some pics for sure, or just type the Shaun Hadsall into the computer and you'll see your pics. He's a 3-time best-selling online nutrition author and Body for Life Grand Champion first runner-up, and that's in and of itself is such a cool. I love some of that story back there. And so if you're not familiar with Body for Life, that's the old Bill Phillips program that really in the 90s was like so innovative and really first of its kind. I mean, it kind of
made the body transformation thing mainstream.
It did.
Yeah.
It really put it on the map.
Before the internet.
I mean, this guy became like a multi-gazillionaire. Yeah.
A couple $100 million he sold it for. EAS.
Yeah. Not too shabby. Not too shabby.
Not too bad.
I think anybody lifting weights that's even in our ballpark age had an EAS shake
for sure.
At some
Myoplex.
point. Yeah, Myoplex at some point in their life. That was the shake to have. He's also a loving husband. He is a God-fearing man, which is what I really love about him. His wife, Karen, is fantastic, and that's his rock and has been his rock for a long time. They have 4 children and 10 now grandchildren. You just had your 10th not that many months ago, right?
9 and 10 came in the last 7 months, actually. Dude. Yeah, it's crazy, and they're all under 6. It's insane. The kids are like, bam, bam, bam. We're like, all right, you got to put that thing away now, okay? It's like, dude. But once you get to like 6 or 7, it's like 6, 10. What's the difference?
Who cares?
Especially if you're a Nana and Papa.
Right.
Because you could just give them back, right?
That's right. That's right. And you guys are a Nana and a Papa.
Love it. Just the best thing that's ever happened to me is my grandkids. Just total new motivation and focus in life, and just want to be there for them and show them, raise them not to be victims in this world.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So,
no, that's exactly right. Yeah, there's too much victim mentality going around these days. It's almost contagious.
They're in good hands, though. Our kids are amazing. So
that's good. Yeah, that's great. Well, we need more of that. See, and they're carrying it on. See, so you went from 2 with you and your wife to 4. To now 10, right? So it's getting bigger, right?
Yeah,
so I mean, it's expanding out.
We'll probably end up having 1 or 2 more too. I wouldn't doubt it.
Right. So crazy. I mean, that's awesome, dude. Yeah. So 75 Hard, buddy. What is it? Who created it? Why? And what are the rules to it? So let's just give a good overview or synopsis of what this 75 Hard thing is that you committed to with a big group of our friends. And we can go there because I think our listeners are going to be a bit intrigued, if they haven't heard about it.
So many lessons to be learned through 75 Hard in my journey with it. I mean, I've done so many photo shoots in the past because of the industry that I'm in. I've always prided myself on walking my talk. And I always stay, if I get to a point where my body fat levels get over 15%, I get annoyed with myself. I just feel like I need to be, hey, if I'm teaching people this stuff, I need to be a living example.
Right.
Well, what happened with 75 Hard that was different was the rules were harder. That's why it's not called 75 kind of hard, right?
Right. Somewhat hard. Right.
So it's 2 workouts a day. One has to be outside, both are 45 minutes. Okay. Then you have to drink a gallon of water. Follow a diet of some kind, and you have to stick to that diet. No cheap food, no alcohol, okay? And take a progress picture and read 10 pages of nonfiction every day for 75 days straight. So it was created by Andy Frisella, who owns a supplement company, I think, called Proform.
Proform,
yeah.
A great facility, by the way. I was looking at a picture the other day of his Proform facility. Amazing. What a nice setup he has.
Yeah, he does a great job with his podcast. And what ended up happening with that is he started that program and then he wrote a book on it. I didn't read the book, but the rules are very stringent. And I really think what happened with me that's different from the photo shoots is I was checking my flesh, because it's not a physical transformation program. It's actually a mental toughness program.
Yeah, right.
And so when I tell people about it, or they automatically, because it's me and my identity is fitness, oh, you know, what diet? And they just go right to body, right to health. And and I have to remind them, no, this is a mental toughness program. I mean, I cooked through like 4 books. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many books you can read just reading 10 pages a day. You can cook through a 100-page book in 10 days, you know, 200-page book, 20 days, obviously. So, and then you find yourself wanting to read more, you know, is what ends up happening.
Because how many times do you just do 10?
Right, exactly. And you want to finish maybe the chapter or whatever. And you can't use audiobooks. It was funny. I was telling a girl about this yesterday, and she was saying, oh, I do audiobooks. That's great. I was like, no, that doesn't count. You have to use your brain. You're just listening with an audiobook. I mean, the very act of reading, you know, it makes certain neurons in your brain touch that can prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. Most people don't even know this. So reading long form, that's why, you know, little snippets of social media bites that release dopamine can actually create Alzheimer's and dementia early, right? They call it digital dementia or whatever it is, right? So this whole reading thing was a really huge part of it. And really the drying up on the alcohol for me, checking my flesh. You know, I don't ever consider myself an alcoholic, but I realized through this journey how many people really struggle with this. When I posted I was 60 days sober, and I posted it and it blew up and went viral on my fan page, and I was just shocked. I was just like, you know, it was crazy. There was over like 100 comments, and it reached like 80,000 people organically. And it was just like, wow, this really resonates with people. And so for me, I was just having the 5 o'clock happy hour, end of day, stiff vodka cocktail to relax. Yeah. And then with dinner, maybe have a glass of wine. Yeah. Maybe 2.
No, we've been out socially many times, and you have a couple of drinks and enjoy yourself with a meal and friends, and life goes on. You know, you're not overdoing.
Exactly. And so you don't think anything of it, but then you think to yourself, okay, when's the last time I took a day off, right? And so I started taking Mondays off. That was my first thing I started doing. But when I started taking the Mondays off, I knew it was because I didn't like the fact inside my subconscious and conscious self, I didn't like the fact that I was drinking daily. Even though it wasn't really getting hammered or anything like that. It was eating at my conscience, kind of like eating bad food. It chips away at you. Yeah. And so the challenge, when Joel Marion challenged me to do it, and I think there's several lessons to be learned, not only just in the rules that you follow and what it creates up here, but the fact that we had a group of people doing it together got me to the finish line.
Yes. So this is our San Diego trip back in early July.
Yes.
A big group of buddies, old buddies, current, more business buddies, right? And it was a big group of us together, in La Jolla, and having an amazing time. And then this, hey, let's do this 75 hard. And it was about 15 people that jumped on it, right?
Yeah, I think we had 18 total when we started. I think 12 finished. So 6 dropped out for various reasons. Some legit, some not.
One guy had an appendix, John Rulin.
They almost exploded, right? So what are you going to do? The poor guy, you know what I mean? So stuff like, life happens, it's going to happen. And he was bummed. He wanted to get back in too, but, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about stuff like that. And so Joel challenged me, and there's several lessons to be learned in that, because I think when I'd really look up to and respect Joel. And so I would never want to let him down. So when he asked me and he challenged me, I told him, I said, listen, I think this will be good for me. I would like to commit, but I can't do it without my wife. I need her on board. And of course, I started getting the business. People were ragging on me, but I'm like, no, she's the cook. She does the laundry if I'm working out twice a day.
I remember you saying this.
Right. Yeah. I know I couldn't do it without her. I'll be the first one to admit she's the water under my boat. I know that for a fact. And so I planted the seed with her that Joel challenged me, and I let that seed sit for about 2 days. I didn't bug her. I let her sit on it, and I waited for her. And then I came up to bed about 2 nights later, and she said, I think you need to do it. And so she was on board with it. And it was funny because just following along with me, just because she was cooking my food, she lost like 11 pounds.
See, dude?
And she was and she was still having her cocktails, and it's just, she was just eating the diet. We'll talk more about that. But back to the group, because I think that's a huge aspect, is the accountability of a group together, because I injured my knee. I had my 15th wedding anniversary. So you have all kinds of these moments where you just want to cave and say, F it, it's one drink, right? But I'm like, no, integrity. Number one, I won't be able to sleep at night. I don't, Number two, I'm not going to let Joel down. And number three, I'm not going to let these guys beat me.
Right.
No freaking way.
Competitive spirit.
And I want to win. I want to win with them. I want us all to win together. And so that really kept me going, is them guys. And of course, there's guys in the group that needed it way more than I did. Yeah. physically.
Yes.
They needed it way more than I did.
Big Richie ain't so big anymore,
exactly,
is he?
Exactly.
I love to see
Joel,
that.
too, he needed to do it. So, the physical aspects, though, really do become just reflections of what ends up happening mentally. But there's something to be learned there, and that is like if you do make a commitment to something, find somebody that you can be held accountable to that you won't let down.
That's right.
That's the most important aspect because if it's
that's a bigger pain for
because
you.
If it's a friend accepts your weaknesses. That's all right, man. You just had one.
Yeah.
Right? Where a real mentor and a coach and somebody who cares about you, that's bullshit. Right. They call your ass out.
Yep.
Right?
It's true.
And that's what we need to follow through with our commitments.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be learned from that because that can be carried over into any area of our life. Now, with all this being said with 75 Hard, I want to say this because I think it's important and that there's pros and cons to this. Okay, we had a guy in the group who had an autoimmune disease, and he's just pushing himself. And instead of doing 45 minutes, he's doing an hour and a half twice a day. And
oh my
gosh,
gosh,
dude, you got an autoimmune disease.
Massive overtraining.
Right. And then one day he slept for like 4 hours, and he was up at like 4 a.m. bragging on video, texting us all how he's going to push through even though he's tired and hasn't gotten any sleep. And we're all like, dude, go do some yoga. So the second workout, and this is very important because I'm 50, man. Yeah. If you're working out twice a day, 45 minutes, true hardcore workouts, you'll never recover.
Yeah.
You got to have recovery time. So the good part is that second workout can be stretching. It can be yoga. I did a lot of dynamic stretching. I did a lot of soft tissue, stuff like that as well, and a lot of walking, which is very anti-inflammatory. And what I discovered through this journey as far as the physical aspect of it goes is that it's a lot easier to get lean when it's just diet. Like because of my limitations and I hurt my knee, and because I could – the last couple of weeks before a photo shoot, I upped my cardio sessions to like an hour to 90 minutes just to whittle away at that last little bit. And what I've discovered through this process is that's not necessary. It's all diet. I walked my way to I was like 5.8% last week when I tested when I entered the contest. So I went from like 15% to like 5.8%. And I literally was doing, the only cardio I was doing was walking like the last 6 weeks.
Wow. What would you say you were doing for distance for your walking?
For me it was time. It was 2
to 3 miles.
Yeah, it was just time.
Yeah.
Right. So it would be a 30-minute walk, and then I do 15 minutes of stretching afterwards outside.
Yeah.
Just drag my stuff out by the pool,
Wow.
and then of course there's other times where. It's not so. This all sounds like a bed of roses until it's 38 degrees and it's pouring rain, and you got to go outside and walk in that crap for 45 minutes. And I had to do that twice at the end.
Yeah. As it got cold, because and you live where?
Michigan.
Okay, so we're in Clearwater, Florida. We don't hit those 30s.
Right. But you guys are dealing with 100 degrees instead.
Yeah. We hit the hundreds. You hit the 30s. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean that changes. Your environment can really change your mindset.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised what happens to you when you are forced to do that stuff. So like it would be, I remember one night it was like 10 p.m. and I was so ready for bed, and I had a checklist. Andy has an app that you can download and buy for $5 too. But I'm just I have so much technology in my life. I'm the old school guy.
Yeah,
I like
check the box.
Check the box. And I pull out my sheet and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still got 10 pages to read and I've still got 20 ounces of water to drink, and it's 10 p.m. So those are the moments. And that's why I would wake up and try to have my gallon of water gone by like 4 p.m. and I try to read my 10 pages right away. And get it out of the way. Eat the frog, so to speak, right? Yeah. But there's days where that's not going to happen. And so those were when your character is really tested and you really grow. And my wife would be like, well, I'm going to bed, honey. And I'm like, all right. And I'd stay up and read those 10 pages and guzzle my water. And then I'd get up 3 times in the night and have to go pee. And
right. And be like, oh, it's going to be one of them nights where I'm waking up every 2-3 hours. Yeah.
But, that's really where the character is forged and where the mental toughness is really built is those moments where you have to force yourself to push yourself through the resistance that we just talked about.
That's right. So, and people on the other end of this conversation are going to say, well, what if you just did one long hour-and-a-half workout?
Can't do that.
It's
got to be 2 separate times of the day. So you can't even do a 45-minute weight training session and go walk for 45 outside afterwards. It's got to be a different time of the day. So that really adds
That's a whole different
challenge
element to it, right?
Right, exactly. And so 75 days, we made it. 12 of us made it. And what was really cool, the other thing I wanted to mention about the accountability side is the carrot. Dangle the carrot is really good, right? Yeah. So Joel, I think we were about 7 to 10 days in, and Joel texts us a picture of a boat in a house in Cabo.
Oh, so what's the reward? You got it.
We leave for Cabo tomorrow.
So this is the reward: is a trip to Cabo for those people who made it.
And if anybody knows Joe Marion, they know what a go-giver he is and how generous he is. Right. And of course, he's like, everybody who makes it to the finish line, I'm paying.
Right.
And so that was the carrot that was dangled. So I think dangling the carrot is like super important by creating a deadline.
That is cool, though. I mean, so it is more of yes, it's a physical thing, but it's a discipline thing. It's a mindset thing. It's just creating new good habits in your life, and that's what more of us need on a regular basis, right? Cut out some bad, put in some goods, and then try to run with it for a little while.
Well, and then when you're done, I noticed, I heard of a girl who finished, she was like 23 years old, and she woke up the day she was done, and she started drinking at like 9 a.m., and I'm like, well, that's a 22-year-old for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? But as you get older and you're not looking, like the day that I finished and I cheated, it was interesting to see how your body responds, and I think touching on this is good because I had not put a sugar in my body, any cheap food, dessert, or sugar, or any alcohol.
Nothing refined, in other words.
I sat down at breakfast. I had a Bloody Mary, and I took 2 drinks of it, and the alcohol hit me right in the head. Like I was immediately buzzed, and I didn't even drink half the Bloody Mary because I didn't need it. I literally had like 3 sips, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. Karen ordered huevos rancheros, and of course that would be something I would always get on a cheat meal, but I wanted the sugar because I hadn't had any in so long, right? Because I do carb cycling. I had been eating clean carbs. Yeah. So I went for the frosted flake crusted French toast.
Oh, my God.
And I'm not kidding you, I took 2 bites, and I had a pounding headache, like pounding. Because my body
just was like, what is this?
It rejected it, completely rejected it. So it was interesting to see how my body responded. And then I had a burger and fries later that day, and I was full for like 6 hours afterwards. I could not eat the whole day afterwards. I was just like, wow, this is just crazy when you don't do this to your body. What happens?
My only experience with that, and then I want to get into the carb cycling methodology, like what you did, what your diet of choice. My only real experience, and because I just have not lived in the world of like always being tip-top shape, it was always more about like strength-based, stuff for me. This is, and I've gone on my own journey. I didn't do 75 hard. I was doing my own thing with Will Grazione, and I've lost 25 pounds, and I'm maintaining it, and I feel great, and I'm, all those great things. But a few years ago, Mike and I did a 2-week fast. If you remember, we did rational fasting, which is an Elliot Hulse thing, right? And we experimented with it. We want to try it. I remember because we were doing 72-hour fasts. So we had 3-day fasts, then 1 keto meal, then 3-day fast, and then a couple of keto meals.
Brutal.
It was brutal. It was very, very hard, but we stuck to it. I mean, we really did it. I remember that beer I had, the flavor of it. It tasted so sweet. I'm like, beer never tastes like this to me, ever. Like my palate, everything about it was different. Yeah. I'm like, gosh, that's just from me not eating food for like 3 days. And, for anyone who's ever fasted or try it, because I feel like it does have a lot of health benefits. I mean, there's a lot, that could be a whole nother discussion, right?
Right.
But, it was very interesting. Anyway, let's dive into what you actually were doing, because you have to pick a diet basically on 75 Hard. It could be any diet, but then you have to stick to it. So what did you do?
Well, I do the same thing I always do, is carb cycling. And there's three primary reasons that carb cycling is my diet of choice. And I think it's superior to any other diet. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah. I will say that the best diet that anybody listening to this could follow is one that they can stick to.
Right.
Adherence is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But with carb cycling, you don't eliminate any food groups. So I love that. So, period.
I don't like any kind of elimination diet, to be honest.
And that's why most diets work anyway, because you're eliminating entire food groups. Right.
They fail because of that.
Yeah, carb cycling, you're not. Carb cycling is more of a hormonal entrainment diet. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I love it because of that. Number one, you have variety and flexibility. So it makes it easier to adhere to. So that's number two, is it's easier to adhere to. And number three, it caters to your hormones on a diet. And there's been some research done. I know there's a study it was way back in 2011. It was a pretty good study, and it was only one, so it was not conclusive or anything like that, but they had a group of calorie counters and a group of people focused on hormones. And the group who just focused on hormones and didn't count calories lost 65% more weight.
Wow.
So hormonal entrainment's a really big thing, and that's another reason I love carb cycling. And as a lifestyle diet, too, it's amazing because the way that I follow it, which I'll share here, it caters to our natural social life because you're eating carbs on the weekends, right? And we're going to tend to eat more carbs on the weekends.
When we have more free time, right?
More social. Yeah. We have sporting events and all that stuff. And the flexibility of it is very good too. So for example, if you have a high carb day during the week because something's going on and you want to eat your carbs, well, then you just swap that for a weekend day. So we can talk more about that as well. But so it really is ultimately, it's so effective. And that's the third reason is effectiveness. And I'm living proof of that, I think, out of the group. And, I don't say this to boast at all. I just have a lot of experience, but I crushed everybody in that group.